Hey guys, so I'm gonna teach you guys how I use color theory to neutralize all of the pigmentation that I have on my skin and also to minimize as much texture as possible. So this is the RCMA color adjusting palette. It's one of my favorite products and I use this to create custom correctors. The first thing I do is basically add like a wash of color to the skin. This is the Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm Powder and I just use it with like a fluffy brush and I just go in. You can use anything that is sheer. I'm just using the Danessa Myricks Balm because it does help with reducing oil. I do have a layer of sunscreen on right now to add a little bit of moisture, but what I'm doing is just neutralizing as much of the redness as I can with a light layer of color. And I say color because it doesn't matter what product you're using as long as it's sheer. You can even use a high coverage foundation or shear it out or mix it in with a moisturizer. That works as well. This is going to act as a base for the correctors to sit on. If you put a high amount of coverage on one spot to cover up a blemish, you can kind of see it because there's a disconnect with the way the skin looks like opacity wise. So if that one spot is super opaque with color and then the rest of the skin is kind of just translucent looking, then you'll be able to see the difference in the demarcation. This is good, and I have a couple active breakouts in these areas, but I will show you how to deal with those, especially really inflamed ones. My skin is actually not the worst it's been this month, so I'm glad, but at least I have a couple examples to show you how to deal with that. Okay, so now that we have a base layer of coverage, I want you guys to realize that this layer of coverage is not a be-all end-all coverage, okay? You're going to be layering in thin layers. I want you guys to also think about this in a bigger picture. You are building thin layers, so it's not going to look finished until it is finished, okay? So don't be at the middle of your makeup being like, girl, what is this? Because it's not going to look like the end of your makeup in the middle of your makeup, if that makes any sense. Anyways, now that I have that initial layer of coverage to kind of wash, most of the pigmentation and redness out of the skin, we're gonna go into correcting. I'm not gonna get into the whole color wheel thing, but I'll pop up a picture of a color wheel and you can see what I'm talking about. And maybe I'll leave it in for the rest of the video, who knows. But you can kind of see that most of my pigmentation, to some people, looks red, but to me, there is a lot of violet, okay? But there's a little bit of red that's just from inflammation, you know what I mean? But if you take violet, the opposite color on the color scale would be yellow. If you take red, the opposite of red on the color scale would be green. So it's going to be a olive yellow. If you want to think about it in more of a technical term, it's yellow on the more cool side. So I'm going to be using a olive yellow to neutralize most of what I have going on. And there's some areas that pull olive, so I'm going to use a peach to neutralize that. It's all about balancing the skin to create a flat looking complexion, okay? So you're using color theory to lift dark colors back to the same value of the rest of the skin around the surrounding area. Okay, so first I mix white, take a little bit of yellow. It's going to be like basically 50-50 with this one. Then take a little bit of green. Sorry, take a little bit of blue and you will create a olive tone color. And it's going to be slightly lighter because I'm trying to lift the pigmentation out of its place. So that white will help with lifting the color as the olive helps with neutralizing it so it doesn't look gray. I go in with a dome brush and I really do saturate the bristles of this brush. First, you want to focus on the very distracting points on the face. So it's going to be these really inflamed areas and these dark violet areas of pigmentation. So first, I'm going to go in, tap it on, and this is going to be like a very messy way of putting it on, but you can see as I'm putting it on that it is neutralizing. So you can do a initial layer and then blend it out, then go back in to neutralize. Like that. Go in again, blend it out to neutralize, add a base color, and then you'll go in again to pinpoint that spot of pigmentation. And then I'll just go into any areas that kind of stand out to me. So you can see that this one right here specifically, it's kind of coming up gray because I need a little bit more of a salmon tone to neutralize it. So go down here, kind of work it into this area that has a lot of redness. Then I'll go around the nostrils. I kind of avoid my upper lip area because that is where I have a 5 o'clock shadow. So a 5 o'clock shadow usually pulls like a olive color, and I'm using olive, so I wouldn't want to put olive on olive and then it's just like too much saturation in that area. So I save this part for a peach corrector that I use to neutralize that 5 o'clock shadow. I'm gonna go over these spots, blend over, go over them again and pinpoint. They should just disappear. If they don't disappear, then you can either add more vibrancy to your corrector. Sometimes what I like to do is kind of split off the batch and then add more color onto the second batch that I make. Okay. Now I'm gonna create a peach color. So for that, what I usually do is go in with more white. We'll do red. That's a little dark. More white, and then I'll go up a little bit, get a little bit of yellow in there. Bring some warmth. It's almost like an orange color. More white. It's a bit too vibrant, so let's do a little bit more white. Lift the color a little bit. That's good. Okay. I like to focus around the mouth area where there's more olive, and you'll see it disappearing. And I'm only focusing this where I have dark stubble, and I'm kind of brushing it in a backwards motion because I want to fill it into the hair and the texture. So down here as well. This is mostly just for the 5 o'clock shadow. I'm gonna go in to more white and mix it into that color that we made just to brighten it up. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of yellow because I'm dealing with more violet now. This is just to balance out any area that might be too olive. So it's kind of about balancing. So I'm gonna go in, brighten up this spot right here because it's a little gray. This area that's a bit gray as well. Go into this area. That's also kind of gray. This area is looking too bright, so I'm taking more peach. I'm gonna go right under the eye. Okay, so I'm done with correcting. I could do more, but I really cannot be bothered to do more. That's the thing, you guys can adjust this to how you want. If you want it more perfected, you can obviously go in with the foundation. If you want to go in with a medium to full coverage foundation and then do this on top, it looks even better. So now that I have the creams going on, I want to lock it in and create a film so it doesn't move around. I usually do a aerosol setting spray. I like the One Size Onto Dawn or the Krylon fixing spray. That one is my all-time favorite, but I'm using the Scandinavia makeup finishing spray. This is the bridal one, and I'm just gonna do a layer all over. A pretty heavy layer as well. I'll let that dry down. So for powders, I usually do a powder foundation, or I will do very thin, finely milled powder. Especially for skin work, you want the powders to be as thin and smooth as possible. So your talc powders might be a little too thick, but I do love talc, don't get me wrong. This is the Makeup Forever Micro Finishing pressed powder, and I like this one. I have the loose one, but I honestly always go for this one. So I mix this, or I'll use it by itself. I have been loving the new MAC reformulation of the Powder Plus powder foundation. So I'll usually mix these because this is a bit too much coverage for what I like personally. So I'll dip into this. And there's a lot of fallout with this product, which I don't really like about it, but the product itself is super smooth. And I'll mix it with that micro finishing powder on the back of my hand just to diffuse some extra product. And then I'll go in on the perimeter and just stamp it. And I'll go in with a little bit more powder foundation. And what this is going to do is mattify, because it is powders, but it's also going to help with creating a veil of color, which can help with filling in any areas that you might have missed. And it also helps with covering a little bit of the corrector as well. I'm going to bring it up to the T-zone. And I'm basically just stamping it onto the skin. But you can still see that there's a sheen to the skin. It's not overly matte or powdery. And it's keeping the creams that I placed down in place because of the setting spray that I laid before I powdered. And now it's looking like not overly greasy on the skin. So then now you can actually see some smoothing going on. This is after, that is before, that's after. So there's a lot of smoothing, and I like using powders with silica. Just make sure that they're not overly shiny, because sometimes silica powders have a lot of mica in it as well. This one doesn't have mica in it. So there's a lot of light diffusion going on. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a eyeshadow brush. This is like a tapered, I don't know, fluffy brush. It's from e.l.f. It is the Fluffy Eye Blender brush. I'm going in with the micro finishing powder. I'm gonna go in and spot powder in the areas that I want to eliminate the shine. So I don't want light to pick up the texture in these areas. I don't want any shine in this area because this is where I have extra texture. So any areas that are like very raised, you want a powder so it doesn't, the light doesn't hit that area and then make it look more emphasized. So I have this MAC blush that I love, and I also have another shade in the MAC Powder Plus Foundation. This is C35. The pan is actually falling out, so yeah. But this is gonna match my tan. So I have a tan on the back of my neck that is from the summertime. Honestly, my neck is always dark, but if you're trying to look for a really natural bronzer, match it to the back of your neck or wherever you have a dark tan. So if I match this to my arm, it's pretty accurate. So I'm going to take a fluffy brush, dip it into that powder. I'm going to go in and add some depth on the perimeter. And since the skin is slightly tacky, I don't have to overload product for it to adhere to the skin. I'm going with the blush now. This is MAC Blush Pepper in the Glow Play. I love the texture of these blushes. They're so smooth. I'm going with the smaller brush. This is the Golden Triangle from Bedelium. I'm going to bring it down. I love bringing my blush down to my jawline. I bring it on the forehead to emulate a natural sun-kissed flush. That's usually where the sun hits, is the forehead mostly. Right up here. Back on the nose. Love taking it on the lips as well.